All right, guys, welcome to Volume 3 of Church Jams Now.
Volume 3.
Yes, it is Volume 3. We've done 2. We feel pretty good about it. We are 2 former youth group kids and current music nerds, and we revisit and discuss iconic Christian music albums of the 90s and 2000s. I am your co-host, Kylan Savage.
And I'm your other co-host, TJ Smith.
You're a double co-host? You're a co-co-host?
That's right.
We just did an episode with Josh Olson talking about Take Me to Your Leader. How'd you feel about that?
It was wonderful. Josh brought a lot to the table, and it was a delight to have him. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Let's give another shout out to him, our very first guest. We'll definitely be having more guests on after this, but for now, it's just the dynamic duo, the OGs.
The OGs.
What are we doing this week? What are we talking about?
Oh, man, Kyle and I, I'm so excited, because for as long as there have been things that people drop, there has been someone to pick it up. We're talking about 5 Iron Frenzy today.
That's right. 5 Iron Frenzy, our newest album ever. So I gotta say, going into this, I'm very excited, but I'm also not super familiar with this album as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of songs that I do remember, but I feel like most of those were on like compilation albums and stuff
right.
that I had growing up. So I'm super stoked to go through this album and see, what am I excited to see? I'm excited to see...
What are you excited to see?
Dude, I don't know, man. I'm in a closet. My wife's sleeping. I'm a little bit all over the place today. But I'm really excited to see how this album holds up in terms of just ska music in general. 5 Iron Frenzy was probably one of the top Christian ska bands, you know, as them and OC Supertones.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely more of a Supertones guy, but I think you were more of a 5 Iron guy.
Yep.
So I'm excited to kind of get into it and see how all of this fits within the context of Christian music and ska music, which was super big at this time, because this album came out, this was 97?
97.
All right, so I think that kind of leads us into this little part where we go into Kylan's Nerd Corner, where I basically just looked at Wikipedia for a couple hours and pulled some things about the band. And I know, TJ, you have some thoughts and some information that you want to share about them, right?
Yeah, I got some stuff.
All right, so jump in whenever. I'm just going to kind of read off some of these facts. So 5 Iron Frenzy, they were founded in Denver in 1995. The band at the time consisted of Reese Roper on vocals, Micah Ortega and Scott Kerr on guitar, Keith Horig on bass, and Andrew Verdecchio on drums. And then a little bit after they were founded, they brought in Brad Dunham, Dennis Culp, and Leonor Ortega as their horn section.
Also known as Jeff the Girl.
Jeff the Girl, yeah. That's what's up. And she was cousins with guitarist Micah Ortega, right?
Correct.
All right. That's cool. Got to keep it in the family.
Keep it all in the family.
And it wouldn't be a ska band without a horn section.
That's right.
So I found out too that I didn't know this. The name 5 Iron Frenzy was an inside joke with the band.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently one of the members' roommates came out of their room with a golf club.
Just waving it around.
Yeah. He was scared of being mugged. I mean, this is the most inside band nonsense
joke
ever.
Yeah.
You know, and then you name your band after that. It's like how I have a song on my new album called Steve Harvey. And it's totally just an inside joke with my wife and I.
That new.
Steve Harvey, that new. I feel like that happens a lot with bands and stuff, you know?
Yeah. You know, get any number of goofballs in a room and just weirdness ensues.
Exactly.
And a lot of times that's what makes the best band names or inside joke references.
That's true. Because 5 Iron Frenzy is a great band name.
It really is.
I'll just say that right off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I know them as a ska band, but it sounds like the name of a ska band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like they're not taking themselves too seriously. They're just trying to have some fun.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is just me or if there's a connection here that's more universally relatable, but the idea of iron, for some reason, that picture of like something metal then makes me think of like brass instruments. And so I hear the brass section when I hear the name Five Iron Frenzy, like a frenzy, like a lot of people being a part of something. Ska bands having a lot of members. Like there's just for me, a lot of correlation between the name and like the essence of ska.
Right, definitely. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
What else you got?
The album we're talking about today is our newest album ever, which was their second album. Their first album was Upbeats and Beatdowns. Our newest album ever was released in November 1997, and hey, it peaked at 176 on the Billboard 200 charts.
It sure did. That was the Renaissance, man. The ska-naissance.
The ska-naissance. I like that. Hashtag ska-naissance.
That's never going to take.
I was looking to 1997. Some of the top songs that year. Bop by Hanson came out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly.
Oh, man.
And Candle in the Wind by Elton John because, Princess Diana had just died.
Right.
So.
Wow, what a time.
I know. That was all in the zeitgeist. Although I know we've done this on the past couple episodes where I kind of talk about the Grammys and stuff, but I thought this was super weird. The best pop album of 1997 at the Grammys. Do you think you can guess it?
No way.
I guarantee you can't, but I want to see what you think it might have been. The best pop album of 1997.
I mean, it's got to be some like boy band or Britney Spears or something, right?
You would think, right?
Yeah.
It's Hourglass by James Taylor.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Flippin' James Taylor won Best Pop Album in 1997. Do you know that album? I don't because I'm not a 50-year-old wine fanatic.
Oh, you're not? Oh, okay.
I know.
Yeah, no, I don't know it at all.
I don't either. I don't listen to James. I have listened to James Taylor, and
Sure.
James Taylor's awesome,
Sure.
but I'm also not a divorced mother. So, I don't listen to a ton of James Taylor.
Right.
But I will say, though, the best alternative album at the Grammys was OK Computer by Radiohead.
Right on.
That makes sense.
And meanwhile, these plucky nerds are jumping around with their horns in Denver.
Yeah.
Making a bunch of noise.
Making a bunch of noise. A 5-iron frenzy, man.
It wasn't no bop, but it was their newest album ever.
That's true. Do you have any other things to say? I don't have much more. Literally, I have one other thing. And I thought it was weird. Specifically from Wikipedia, I thought the wording of this was really funny. But in 2003, I guess they broke up. But specifically, the drummer, Andrew Verdecchio, left. But the wording on the Wikipedia article is really funny to me. Andrew Verdecchio's decision to leave the Christian faith and therefore the band made the band break up.
What an extreme statement.
I know, right?
I
know, that seems real intense.
It's almost like it was like an ultimatum that he made for himself.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe somebody else made it for him, but yeah,
I know, it's just something, his decision to leave the Christian faith and therefore the band.
It's
like,
man.
Jeez, man.
Whew. I hope everybody's okay. That's all I
I know. But hey, they did reunite in 2011, and I guess they're still making music.
Kylan, did they ever reunite in 2011?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, there was a GoFundMe, and they raised over $200,000 to make a new album.
Are you serious? I had no idea.
Engine of a Million Plots, and it is incredible.
Is it really good?
It's so good. I love it.
Is it more ska, or have they have they pivoted to something else?
It's everything you would want in an album coming out now from a ska band from the 90s.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. Just listen to it. It's incredible.
All right. Maybe we'll cover it one day.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I'm so glad it exists. I was a little worried about it whenever the news of their reformation and the GoFundMe came out, just because they're a precious band to me, like in my kind of nostalgic music brain.
Well, it seems like this went a little better than the DC Talk cruise.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna say yes, but yeah, no, it's a great album and they killed it. Yeah, so what I got on 5-iron is I'm basically reading this straight off of Wikipedia as well, but I'll try to jump around if we have anything that's overlapping. A little summary blurb about 5-iron is that they're an American band formed in Denver, Colorado in 1995, best known for playing ska punk music characterized by an offbeat sense of humor and prominent Christian themes. 5-iron was one of the pioneering figures of the Christian ska movement, which emerged with ska's mainstream revival in the 1990s.
Okay, but what besides 5-iron Frenzy and OC Supertones, what is the Christian ska scene?
I'm going to say the only other band that I know of is the Insiders.
I don't know them.
But that's it. It's those three that I'm aware of.
That's it.
But you bring up a good question as far as what other ska was going on at the time. And yeah, as far as Christian ska, I wouldn't have any idea. The other bands in the ska-naissance or the third wave of ska.
I like ska-naissance. Let's stick with that.
Among those bands is No Doubt, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Voodoo Glow Skulls, Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake, the Aquabats, and that's about it for me. There are a bunch of others here, but I don't know any of them. Yeah, I thought this was interesting too. The origins of 5-iron Frenzy go back to a band that they had originally called Exhumator.
Oh, yeah, I was reading about this.
Which is a Denver-based Christian industrial thrash metal project.
So they were like Christian 9 Inch Nails?
That's the picture I get. Yeah. Which featured Reese Roper, which, as you mentioned, is the vocalist, guitarists Micah Ortega and Scott Kerr, bassist Keith Horrig, and drummer Andrew Verdicchio. So basically, like, the core of 5-iron Frenzy was this metal band.
So they were a metal band, and then they just kind of transitioned into ska.
Essentially, I think they like lost interest in metal and decided that ska was where it was at. So they were like, okay, let's be a ska band.
I transitioned from being in a metal band to writing country music.
There you go. Humble beginnings.
Metal is a young man's game.
Right.
I will say that. Metal is a young man's game. Unless you're like Slayer. I'm just like, I can't keep up that amount of anger and energy. Like,
you know what?
It seems way more fun.
Way more fun. But other than that, that's the one difference I see between the energy level in ska and metal. Like, the only difference is metal is angry.
Right.
Because ska is just the happy, fast version of metal, I guess, as far as energy level for a live show.
That's true. Dude, I read somewhere, it was like a tweet or something that said ska music sounds like what's going on in a 13-year-old's head when they get pizza.
That's it.
And I've never heard a more accurate description of ska.
That's it.
I don't know who wrote that. I would give them credit if I did, but I always think about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just so happy. It's just so fun. It's like, yeah, pizza. This is awesome. I'm gonna dance. Like,
I mean, the Aquabats have a song about Friday being pizza day at school. So
I'm curious about that though. I'm curious about that perspective of. I do feel like ska does seem. I'm trying to think of the right word. Immature is not the right word.
Mm-hmm.
The same way I think a lot of emo bands really resonated with like high school kids. You know, there's a certain naivety within ska and just like positivity.
Yes.
That I think is really interesting. And I don't really have anything to add to that except I just think that's interesting. I don't know if you have any perspective on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is sort of a parallel between the atmosphere and the emotion in high school and emo. That parallel, right. I think you're dead on there. And then again, I think that ska is reminiscent of that same atmosphere and feeling of like middle school or even like late elementary of just like
right. But that's the thing I'm curious about. Is that just because that's around the time I was introduced to a lot of these ska bands?
Possibly. I think it's impossible to separate that because we just have those associations. For us as listeners.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say this. I love the childish or childlike, I should say, wonder and like fun that ska brings up in me. Even now, as a 30-year-old, like I'm totally receptive to that energy when I listen to that music. I don't have any desire to push back on it.
I get that. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Like it makes me want to put on my checkered Vans and go hang out at the skate park.
Right. Embrace it, man. Have some grape soda.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Before like all this being an adult where you think like the worst problem is that the skate park closes at 8.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about ska in general, because, you know, it definitely did come out of the whole punk movement, but it's not angry. It's not political. It's not... I think that's something that is unique to ska in general.
Yes.
Is that it's really positive.
And to me, Five Iron is the poster child for that idea, because to push back a little bit on what you're saying, when I think about OC Supertones, as you mentioned them being one of the other 3 Christian ska bands, they have a lot of songs that are pretty, you know, I guess their songs' messaging has some overt religious messaging, or maybe even political or social movement ideas that could come off as a little angry. I never felt that way about it, but I could see how somebody would listen to that and be like, man, that guy's kind of mad. Whereas like it's hard for me, and again, this might be my own bias, but it's hard for me to hear Reese Roper sing about like getting a wedgie and think, oh, that guy's mad. Like, I can just hear him grinning ear to ear as he's singing about all of this, even if it's like a painful memory or something. He's like, he's very positive about it, which I appreciate. I feel like they're right in the center of that positivity that we're talking about.
I think so. I love that. I love that too. I think, you know, going back to Bad Brains, I like keeping the PMA, positive mental attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's something that's very specific within this time period and within this scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Jumping back into this Wikipedia article about them, because I think it has a lot to do with what we're talking about. Five Iron experienced their greatest commercial success during the late 1990s as a part of the American ska revival, touring prolifically within both Christian and secular markets, where the band gained a cult following for their energetic live shows, typified by humorous stage antics, which often drew attention to various social causes and charities. So again, talking about positivity, one thing I have always loved about them is like they're goofy, but at the same time, they have heart and sincerity at their core, and they have a desire to... They seem to, over their career, have had a desire to enact real social change or help in whatever small way they could. And I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So, have you ever seen them live?
No, not once.
I have not either.
I watched a friend's DVD of a live performance of theirs.
How was it? Was it energetic and goofy?
Insane, man. So fun. It just made me want to be there. They also played Cornerstone before a lot of big bands, and that was kind of how they gained a lot of their...
I was reading about that. It said they did an impromptu set.
Yeah.
So I'm still curious about how that worked, because as someone that's played Cornerstone, obviously though I played it about 10 or so years later after they did.
Right.
To do like, did they just like crash a stage and start playing? Because I could also see that happening.
Yeah.
I could totally see that happening.
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those sort of guerrilla DIY generator stage setups that they just threw together and played a set because they knew that they had the ears of like certain label representatives. But I know that happened all the time. For context for our listeners, if you don't know what Cornerstone is, it's basically Christian Woodstock Festival.
Yep.
And it doesn't happen anymore, sadly, but Kylan and I both have experience with the festival, and it's a blast.
It is really fun.
And it's where a lot of these sort of alternative or weird Christian music bands found their fan base or found some notoriety or were where they were able to get some awareness about what they were doing.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, for a little more context, like, the year that my band played Cornerstone, the headliners were Anne Boleyn. It was right off the Cities album, and Under Oath were like two of the really big headliners.
Right.
So, yeah, I think Christian Woodstock is a good. It wasn't really like worship music. It was just, although there was definitely a lot of that. It was more
right.
It was more like Christian rock bands, like a lot of the bands that
and really you got a little bit of everything, because there were a lot of folk artists, and there were even electronic bands playing music that happened to be Christian bands. A little bit of everything at Cornerstone. It was a really cool place and way to find, discover, and fall in love with a lot of bands.
Yeah, definitely.
So they really made the most of it, I think. And I just love that they're kind of a goofy band that is fine to lean into self-deprecation in a goofy way and be kind of absurd, and also like lean into pop culture references and geek culture references.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention too, as we talk about their nature as this goofy, plucky little band from Denver that doesn't really care about the fame or fortune, but also acknowledges the pros and the cons of those things. I researched a little bit about their label, 5 Minute Walk Records, which is at least the label they were on when they released this album. And I just found a little blurb about them that I wanted to share, because I think it lines up with what we've said about them so far. They're called 5 Minute Walk Records, and they were run as a Christian ministry, primarily supporting various charities such as homeless shelters and orphanages. And so I just really like that it aligns with Five Iron Frenzy's desire to just play music and do some good. I really love that.
I think that's really cool. So yeah, let's go in a little bit more about the context of the album and your memories with the album. What about it specifically? Do you remember? I'm real curious about that, because like I said, I don't have a lot of context. I remember Sucker Punch and Oh Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like the two that I really remember from this record.
Oh yeah. Those are great songs. They stick out for me as well. I think the top song in my mind when I think of this album is Every New Day. And that's just this beautiful closer that's like transcendent, and like we talked about, it's very positive. I still get pretty emotional when I listen to that song.
Okay, well, like what is that song? Like I said, I'm not super familiar, so
I don't know. I guess a lot of my connection with it is more feeling based than anything necessarily about it sonically or lyrically, but it's a song that to me they're talking about, in the context of Christian theology, they talk about Jesus making every day feel new for them personally. And so for me, it's this message of positivity of like, even if you have a hard day or like a bad night or a rough conversation, or you're feeling down on your luck, the sun's going to rise tomorrow and you'll have a new day then. And so again, kind of like towing the line of sincerity and silliness. That song to me is like this beautiful, earnest song of like redemption and hope. So I love that.
Sweet. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with it, but I'm real stoked to listen to it.
Yeah.
The ever important question, based on our last two episodes, you got to tell me the context. What is your memory of this album while riding your bike? Where were you?
Oh man.
What bike path did you take? What was the scenery? I need you to lay out a scene for us.
Honestly, I was probably riding my bike to my friend John's house to have band practice, which basically was just us drinking a lot of soda and writing down lyrics that were probably terrible. So I was probably riding my bike to his house listening to this album.
There you go. So, like, what age were you when you first found this album?
I'm going to say 16, sophomore year, junior year, something like that of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was about the time that I heard Five Iron Frenzy as well.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I know for a fact that Sucker Punch was on a compilation album. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look it up.
Okay.
Of what compilation album it was. But it was sort of like, the way when we were in high school and stuff, like Victory Records kind of did a thing. It was maybe like a Tooth and Nail or a Warped Tour. Like, it was some kind of compilation album. And I heard that and I was like, what is this? This is awesome. And I was probably about the same age. It was probably like 15, 16.
Nice. Superpowers is also one that comes to mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
It just seems like this fun song for like a montage for a superhero movie or maybe a cartoon. Probably a cartoon.
Probably. I feel like all ska music. Well, okay, so here's another weird context thing. For me, I feel like a lot of 90s cartoon theme songs were ska music.
Completely.
So I do associate like Angry Beavers on Nickelodeon. That was a big one. Like I feel like there were a lot of shows around that time where the theme song was ska music. So anytime I hear it, I do have this nostalgia for cartoons and for middle school and a different point in my life. So I guess that kind of leads into, how do you think this album's going to hold up? I guess I need you to ask the question. Is it a flop or a bop?
Yeah, will our newest album ever from 1997 be a flop or a bop? I don't know. I want to say it's going to be a bop, acknowledging my own bias and my own heavy nostalgia for this album.
All right. So I'm so excited about this because I think based on my context with ska music and how I think there was a lot of music that sounded just like this around this time. This is the first time, I know we're only 3 episodes in, it's the first time in Church Jams Now history, I think it's going to be a flop.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'm excited to be proven wrong.
Yeah, me too. Either way.
I think what I mean by that is I don't know if this is going to have anything interesting to offer.
To 2020 Kylan.
Right. And I think in terms of like, I think for me, my rubric for flop or bop is if I listen to this now for the first time, but still had all the other music that I've listened to throughout my life, does this album offer something interesting and new? Like something that would come on a Spotify playlist. If I just heard it, I would be like, yeah, this is solid.
Right. Something would sort of prick your ear and cause you to dig into the band more.
Exactly. And I don't know if this is going to do that.
Okay.
I know, right? I know. There's a twist right there.
What a twist.
Like I said, I want to be proven wrong.
Yeah. No, I can't wait to see.
But I'm curious too in terms of like other ska bands at the time, like you said, Real Big Fish, Less Than Jake, No Doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if this is going to bring something new to the table for me. And I feel like musically it's probably not. So I think it's, for me, going to come down to lyrics, which is weird for me because I'm not a big lyrics guy. I know we talked about that before. I'm more of a vibe guy. You're more of a lyrics guy.
Right.
So I think I'm going to go in this time focusing a little bit more on lyrics than I usually do. Because I think that's what's going to be the selling point for me.
That's so interesting because ska, in my opinion, is not often known for its strong lyricism.
Right. No, I know. I know. This is
going to be interesting.
I might be setting up the album for failure, and I apologize for that.
But I will say, at the same time, that I think Reese is a super interesting lyricist.
Okay.
And I like his vocal performances. I enjoy his delivery. So maybe there's something there for you. I don't know.
Sweet. Okay. Well, I'm excited. So I guess we're going to take a short little break. We're going to listen to the album, and we'll be back to discuss it in depth, probably entirely too much depth. But, that's what we do on Church Jams Now.
That's right. we'll just keep picking it up. Hey, jammers. TJ here with a quick reminder about our Patreon. You know, if you like what we do, you're digging the podcast, and you want to dig a little deeper, you can support us on Patreon. There's all kinds of different tiers that we have available, starting as low as $2 a month. You can get early episodes, and then other tiers include bonus content and something that we're really excited about called the Cover of the Month Club. So if that's something you'd be interested in, you can find and support us on patreon.com or through the Patreon app just by searching Church Jams Now. All right, thanks.
All right, welcome back to Church Jams Now.
We're back.
We just got back listening to our newest album ever. I will give a little bit, I don't know, this might be a little inside baseball, but typically the way we've done this for the last two records is we usually record the first part, and then we've both kind of taken a day to listen to the records and then come back and record a part two the next day. This is the very first time that we literally were recording, took exactly an hour-long break, and listened to the record. So this is going to be a little bit more first impressions than the previous. Like, I haven't had as much time to kind of digest it all. You know, I think there's something to be said for that. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's all right to be fresh, right off the cuff.
Sweet. So I know you just had a question before we realized that I wasn't recording.
Yeah, Kylan, I'm curious as to, in regard to previous episodes and what seems to be a trend for the podcast, what do you think about the bass?
Oh man, I got so many bass notes.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. So, should we dive right in?
Let's get into it, man.
All right, well, let's start with track 1, Handbook for the Sellout.
Man, what an intro.
Yeah.
They waste no time just getting right into the music.
Yeah, they just got right into it. Although I did think for a ska album, I was initially really disappointed because there were no horns right in the intro. But then they come in right at like 18 seconds.
Yeah.
And then...
yeah, they were just making you wait a little bit.
just a little bit. All right, so what did you think about this?
I love it as an intro track because I think it sets this precedent of, like we mentioned before, a band that doesn't take itself too seriously but still has something to say.
Right. No, I wrote down this felt very much like a mission statement.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little manifesto.
Yeah, it was definitely a mission statement in terms of lyrics. I thought it was sort of a thesis for the band as a whole.
Right.
I thought it was great. I thought lyrically it was really good. I was really stoked
especially
about it.
considering that they, as a band, never really seemed to be people who cared about the fame or fortune of being a band.
Right.
Like, they were really just interested in impacting people positively and creating art that they were passionate about.
Yeah.
And this song, just like you're saying, is a manifesto for that, which is really fun. And the music reflects that too. Like, it's got a little grit to it. It's got a little edge, but it's also pretty like upbeat and fun.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed the lyrics. Like, as a musician, I think I related to this quite a bit. And there's a couple songs on the record that, especially like the first part of the record, that I totally related to.
Yeah, they're really a band's band when it comes to lyrics.
Exactly. But the whole part, do you think that they're too cool now? Being popular is lame. You're the only one. You're the one who made them popular. All their songs are still the same. It's like, dang, dude. Yeah, I get that. I think it's coming out real strong lyrically.
Agreed. And the trumpet part, and then that aggressive breakdown.
Yeah,
that's like really angry. Kind of keeps, again, some of that musical edge that lines up with the lyrical cutting idea of like being upset at a band for quote unquote selling out.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's great.
To bring it back to what you're saying, at 2 minutes, 20 seconds, there's some sweet bass. It's the beginning of that breakdown. I love it.
So
it is very ska. It is part of the ska-naissance, for sure.
It is indeed. And then at the very end, that little off tune, with all the horns.
I love, in the breakdown,
great.
and then towards the end, I love how sloppy the horns are. You know, they sound real. There are parts where they're not like totally in tune. They're not super tight.
Yeah, they're real. Yeah. They're live. They're present.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought this was a great album opener. I thought it started out really strong.
Absolutely. Moving right along.
I think so. So I will say though, okay, I'm going to say this up front. I wrote this down later in my notes. Specifically, I think for ska, I understand the need for like instrumental breaks. I felt some of the songs were way too long, which is weird.
I agree.
Because like I know we talked about that with Jesus Freak, but those songs are like 6 minutes. Some of these songs are only like 3 minutes, but they still feel way too long. I mean, because I kind of just wish they would use the more punk model, like the Ramones or something,
of a sparser
it's like
song.
Some of these songs that are 4 minutes really only need to be like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, agreed.
But then again, I get that because then they wouldn't. I mean, the album would be 20 minutes long.
And I think as a small pushback to that live, the structure of these songs works in a way that keeps the energy up.
100%. But
I'm sure that when they're performing, they can engage with the audience in a way that makes that third repeated chorus still feel fun.
100%. And I do think a lot of this kind of comes out of they're one of those bands that I totally relate to, that there's no way that an album recording is going to compare to their live show.
Right. It's not going to translate.
And really. I think a lot of this kind of suffers from that. I think as a record, I think some of those breakdowns and stuff do not translate to an enjoyable listening experience as opposed to like an enjoyable live experience, you know?
Yeah. And as a testament to that, even as I mentioned in the first half of our volume here, watching the video of one of their live shows, when I hear these songs, the recorded versions, what I think of is the energy from that video of their live performance. So even watching a video of it was engaging enough for me. They were engaging enough performers that I could watch a video of them and then hear this recorded version of the song and feel that.
I get that.
High energy.
So I didn't do that. So I'm curious to see how that translates to our perceptions of the record.
Right.
So I guess we can go ahead and move on to song number 2, Where is Micah?
Where is Micah, Kylan?
I don't know. Dude, I loved this song too.
They didn't know.
This song was really fun.
I like that you love it because, like, I have a hard time liking it more than just a sort of goofball song.
Well, yeah, definitely. But this kind of goes back to what I was saying, how the first part of the record is very relatable. They're like a band's band. I don't know if, like, for mass consumption, if this is, like, this does just feel like a bunch of dudes goofing. Like, it sounds like some crazy nonsense that we would write after just hanging out and drinking some beers and just totally goofing around.
Yeah, it really feels like there's a story behind this song that most people will never know.
Well, Micah was probably just always late, which I get.
Right.
I get. I've been on both sides of that.
Yep.
But as much as I love it, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show my cards here a little bit. I came up with an alternate track list for the record.
Okay.
I don't know, because I don't feel like this is a great second track. This feels a little more self-indulgent.
Yes.
Yes,
I agree. I think that's why I have a harder time with it, is because of where it's placed in the album.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear what you got.
I think,
where do you think it belongs?
I can share all that at the end, but I think it would work better if it was later on the album, after you're kind of eased in. But this being the second track just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. I wrote, how is this a song?
Yeah.
So I think again, to your point that it belongs a little further down in the album.
Yeah, because I even wrote, I guess I forgot I wrote this. I asked the question, is this album worthy? It's a fun song. I love the kind of, with the horns and stuff, they go into a little bit of like a mariachi feel. So musically,
I wrote
musically that's interesting.
It's the horn part sounds like a Spanish classical horn idea, or even like a high school band pep rally song.
Yeah.
You'd hear to get the football team hyped up.
Exactly. But if you're in a band, it's super relatable. But I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if it belongs on the album, but it 100% does not need to be the second track on the album.
Agreed.
That's about all I got for this one too.
Same.
Not a whole lot. All right. So we're just rocking and rolling through this. Let's move on to track number 3.
Rocking and rolling, baby.
Superpowers. All right, what you got?
Superpowers. Well, first off, I gotta say, how about that bass line?
That's my first note. That's my first note.
Very simple, but like tasteful, catchy.
I know.
Sweet bass, man. I love this song, man. It is so cheeseball, but in an endearing way. And again, I think it goes back to that thing that we keep talking about, how they're a band.
If you've been in a band, this song is your anthem.
It's
so
what I mean? Relatable.
But it's not relatable to everybody, but it did just speak to me, and like it spoke to my heart a little bit, and I just so related. Like, my favorite thing about it is I loved the juxtaposition of the verse lyrics and the chorus lyrics.
Yes.
Because the verse is all about just how it is to be in a band.
Yeah. It's a rough life.
You know, being in a van with a bunch of smelly dudes and sleeping on a floor and all that. But then the chorus is, we've been given superpowers, ask us for our autograph. We sing, we dance, we'll make you laugh. Don't you want to be like us? I think that's so good. That juxtaposition is what makes the song, I think. Yeah,
especially because they create this blown out of proportion, romanticized caricature of what it is to be a quote unquote rock star.
Yeah.
And that chorus does drive that home. As a kid, I remember listening to that and being like, yeah, I believe that the chorus is the reality and the verses are like just Reese being funny about stuff. And then the older I got, the more experience I had being in a band, the more I realized the verses were the truth and the chorus was just a funny juxtaposition.
Yeah.
What's your favorite lyric about the reality of being in a band?
I wrote that down. Okay. The funniest thing is there's so much that I relate to, but my favorite line is, sometimes we have a deadline for writing our songs, 5 minutes left to write this one, and then he just goes in the la la la's.
Sometimes we have a deadline for writing our songs, 5 minutes left to write this one, la 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 la.
La la.
I think that's so funny. That is so funny to me.
So good.
But that's also from my perspective of like, I mean, because TJ, you know how many times we've played shows where you've played with my band, where I totally have this perspective of I have a chorus and one verse written. No one in the band had ever heard it, but I was like, I'm so tired of singing our songs. Let's play this new song. And 15 minutes before we go on, outside of the venue, you don't even have your drums because they're up on the stage already. We're just all standing in a circle in the parking lot.
Yep.
And I'm just like, hey, let's play this new song. And half of it is just la-las or doo-doos because...
Whoa, whoa,
Exactly. No, I thought that was so funny. What about you? What's your favorite lyric?
Well... My favorite experientially has got to be 8 people in a stinky van, a couple more couldn't hurt.
Press my face to the window, rapper sticks to my shirt, 8 people in a stinky van, a couple more couldn't hurt.
And actually, that is less about touring life with a band and more about like missions trips.
Oh, yeah.
Or... I was on the tennis team in high school, and we would have away tournaments, you know.
You're on the tennis team?
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was. Now you know. Cool. Inside baseball,
Inside
listeners.
Tennis.
Inside tennis ball. Yeah, so that line, like, middle school and high school bodies, let's just keep it at they smell a lot of times. Yeah. And so there's a real sense memory attached to that lyric for me, unfortunately. However, my favorite line from a writer's perspective is how he somehow successfully rhymes. Everyone in the band can't stand me just because I fell off the stage. And kind of by accident, I broke the promoter's legs.
Yeah.
He somehow, his delivery works in a way that you kind of hate.
I know.
And love at the same time.
It should not work.
It should not
work from a singing perspective, but because he's got that kind of nasally, punk rock, ska voice, it totally works.
And he just pronounces words however the hell he wants.
No, I know. I thought about that in the first song too.
I love it.
There was one line where he says mediocre, but he stretches out the O. And it just it's so weird. None of it should work, but it totally does.
Also, he slips in a Jack Kerouac reference.
And Holden Caulfield. I wrote that down.
And Holden Caulfield.
Yeah, so that does feel
incredible.
I love it, but it does also feel like high school, college me would have been like, oh, that's so deep. Jack Kerouac and Holden Caulfield. It's just like, I mean, okay. But it works. It works for the song.
It does, but you kind of shake your fist at him. You're like,
I know.
Darn you.
It should not work.
Also, I want to make the point that I love the structure of this song lyrically because there's the point you made about the juxtaposition of the reality of being a musician and then like what most people looking from the outside in think that it is. But there's also this idea that the first 2/3 of the song is painting this picture of what it is to be a musician, either true or romanticization. Then there's one line that says something that feels like a message. Just one line, one single line. Don't want to rock the mic, don't want to meet the Pope. I just want to share with you how we got this peace and hope.
Yeah. I mean, that's also mission statement as well, like that.
It is.
That is. I like it because I think it balances out that I once wanted to be famous. Now I want to take it back.
Right.
Because that's just sad, but I get that. But it balances out with that. We just want to spread a message of peace and hope. And I think that goes along with, everything we talked about in context of the band themselves, like how, they tried to use what they did for good, like raising money for different organizations and stuff. And they just, they just seemed like a band, like they just wanted to hang out. And I love that.
Yep.
I
make music and do some good.
I so love that.
Yeah, me too. And I just love that it's one line. The whole song, they're talking about Polish hot dogs and stinky vans, and then just there at the end, it's like, we got this peace and hope. They just slipped it in.
Yeah.
I like that it's kind of simple and tasteful.
Yeah, I agree. Musically, I really like from that bridge where you talk about that, going back into the chorus. I love that turn. I love it. The song flows really well, especially, I will say, the first and second songs don't really follow a typical song structure. Like they don't really have, like they kind of have choruses, but the choruses don't feel that much different from the verses. Mm-hmm. And so I did really appreciate this one as, there is definitely a change between the verse and the chorus musically, like forgetting lyrically, just musically, they transitioned into each other really, really well in a way that I guess is more like typical pop songwriting structure. But there's a reason,
interesting to the ear as well.
That works. And I think that they didn't really achieve that on the first two songs, but they did on this one for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to track number 4, Fistful of Sand. All right, so first off, I loved that there was a real gypsy feel to this. You know, the kind of minor, almost like Arabian. I got a real, like I said, a real gypsy feel.
Yeah, I wrote down Dick Dale.
Yeah,
like Miserlou or like Wipeout, kind of like that. Yeah, it's kind of got an Arabian kind of feel, but like also kind of surfy. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. There was sweet bass. I wrote that down. Of course, there's sweet bass in this one. What I liked about this song too, I thought this was a really angry song.
Yes,
but I thought that was a nice change of pace, you know, from the other songs thus far on the record. Yeah,
and it's, to me, one thing that stuck out too, as you were talking about sort of the pop song structure of Superpowers. Fistful of Sand, on the other hand, to me, and this, it might be to its credit, is compositionally all over the place. It really jumps around. The chord progressions and like the horn melodies are pretty busy and seem very random at first listen.
Right.
But it's still a solid song. So I don't know. I guess that works in this case.
Yeah, but okay, here's my problem with this song though. It's a story song, right? And he switches lyrically, he switches the narrative from talking about the hero of the song to himself.
Right.
That totally works. But I felt the instrumental stuff was way too long.
Yeah.
I think they needed to tighten it up, because part of me wants them to cut out that last verse simply just listening to it, but it also works within the song. And I think if they had just cut out the instrumental and just, you know, all in the bridge and after the bridge and stuff, if they had cut all that out and just kept it a little tighter musically, I think the story element of it would work a lot better.
Would be stronger, yeah.
Yeah, it felt way too long. Like 2 minutes in, I was over it.
I will say, I think that is a strength for this song when played live, because they can really lean into the theatricality of it.
Right.
Because they have more space in the song to kind of do some silly stuff, and especially because they're a very performative band, I could see it working really well live. But I agree, when you're just listening to the song, you get kind of bored.
Right, but if you think about it in terms of like other story songs, they're either very concise, you know, you think of like some Johnny Cash songs and stuff, and he just kind of goes all the way through. Or if you think of it in terms of like the Decemberists, which have like the Mariners song and all that stuff. But what they do is they give a lot of space for it to breathe, but it changes musically and instrumentally. And they don't do that with this. Like if they had added in, more like maybe some different instruments or some instrumentation.
Right.
Then I think that could have worked, but ultimately I think it just kind of makes the song fall a little flat.
I agree that they could have been a little more inventive and creative with that, with extending the song. I do like how they drop down to that kind of plunky bass, that boom, boom.
No, I love the bridge. The
boom,
bridge is
and then
so good. And the build from the bridge, from that like real, where he kind of whispers. And then the screaming is rad.
He's just yelling.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
That part works. So it sort of redeems itself by the end of the song, I would say.
It does. But
there's that kind of slump moment, and then it picks back up.
Yeah, but you could have easily cut out a minute from this song, and I would be
right.
I'd be totally fine.
Pleased with it. Yeah.
Got anything else for Fistful of Sand?
Nah. That's it.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on to track number 5. Like I said, we're just blasting through this compared to
burning through it.
Compared to how deep we got into how much we hated Jesus Freak. Because that's the thing with this too. Like so far, I really like it. I don't love it.
Right.
But it's good. I don't feel like there's a whole lot to say. It is ska music. So, you know, like I said, I'm trying to focus on lyrics, and I'm trying to focus on how the music complements the lyrics and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't think personally I have quite as much to say about each individual song, because they're pretty similar. But let's move on to track number 5, Sucker Punch.
Number 5, Sucker Punch.
This is the first Five Iron Frenzy song I think I ever heard. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's great. It's so good.
It's so good.
That intro is so good. It reminds me of, like we said before, it sounds like a cartoon intro. You know, it reminds me of Angry Beavers.
Especially those horns.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I get why I related to this song so much in middle school.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it's the quintessential middle school punk ska song.
Yes. Oh, you don't have friends? That's okay. Just listen to Five Iron Frenzy.
Exactly.
Which is both like so sweet and beautiful and kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not mad about it. I really feel like, as we've talked about them having a lot of elements of like mission statements or manifestos, to me, this feels like an anthem for the band that's coming straight from their heart.
Right. Well, what I like too is lyrically throughout it, he paints such a vivid picture. Whenever I heard the song before and whenever I hear it now, I picture it all in my head. Like I see see a music video, not the actual music video they made, but I see a music video of like a real,
you've got your own
real geeky kid with backpack and the pocket protector and everything,
spilling something from their backpack.
Yeah, I will say though, I kind of hated. I know hated is really strong. It felt very weird to me, the super religious aspect of the second half of the chorus. So let me read those lyrics real quick. The chorus says, "A song sung for underdogs, for all the left out. A flag flying for losers somewhere in the heavens." That totally works with everything else in the song. And then he takes a hard right turn. "The God of everlasting comfort believes in me. Loved me when I was faithless. He still died for me." That just seems really shoehorned.
It does. Unless you're known for being the seventh grader that's the cornerstone of the youth group. And everyone hates you for it, or at least makes fun of you for it.
But that's the funny thing.
You, at the end of the day, like, you don't really have any friends. You don't have anybody to talk to, but you know that there's this guy named Jesus, and he's your buddy.
I mean, I get it. Like I said, I totally get it. It just weirded me out on this listen.
Well, yeah. As a 30-something, like in 2020, listening to this is weird. It's really like
weird.
It does feel shoehorned and forced. And I think that may be the difference for you and I. Like, for me, having that experience of listening to a song and even listening to a song years after I had that experience, but it's still being, fresh in a way, right. Knowing what it was like to be awkward and be in middle school and feel a distance.
I get it. I mean, because
from my peers,
not everyone, but a lot of the bands that I listened to growing up have songs about how awkward it is in middle school and high school. And, it's good to give a voice that those little Christian kids can relate to.
Yeah. And at least there's that line in the middle of the chorus that kind of ties the two ideas together. Like, it starts out as this just general anthem for underdogs, but then the line, "A flag flying for losers somewhere in the heavens," that you mentioned, like, I like that kind of hinges the ideas together.
Yeah. No,
but I agree. It's a little forced.
It's a little weird. But I get it. I'm conflicted in terms of this. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. It makes sense to me, but it does just feel a little weird. Especially I will say in the context of the whole record. There's only one other song that I think feels a lot, similarly worshipy.
Right.
I don't know. I got nothing else to say about it. It just feels weird. It feels weird, but I get it. That's all I'm going to say.
It does. Yeah. And I think that goes back to what we've been saying about how they really toe the line of like silliness and sincerity. And they just do it unashamedly, which that's what I find really endearing about them as a band, and why I'm okay with it, even when I can call it out and say, like, that's ridiculous, that's over the top. Yeah. I can kind of say it with a smile, I'm like, you guys, like,
I mean, it does fit within the context of them as a band. Like, it makes sense to me. I get it.
For sure.
All right. You got anything else about Sucker Punch?
Nope.
Oh, I will say real quick, I did enjoy in the verses, they don't really do, like I said, they don't do verse, pre-chorus, chorus, repeat.
Yes.
But they have a little bit of a pre-chorus in this, in that they repeat the line, giving meaning to pencil neck geek, a dork or so to speak, tongue in cheek. That's great. That's really
that
good.
is great.
That's really good. I can totally dig that.
Yeah, solid lyricism.
Yeah. All right, so let's do track number 6, Kitty Doggy.
Kitty Doggy.
I'm not even pulling this one up. I got one thing to say about this. But I also, this is another thing. This goes back to the Where's Micah thing.
Yes.
I get it in that this feels like one of those ideas that sounds super fun when you've been recording 16 hours a day for 2 weeks and it's 3 a.m. and also you're a Christian band, so you're probably not drinking. Like, this feels like some dumb,
you gotta find
some dumb shit we did like in high school.
You gotta find those laughs somewhere,
and
man.
Everyone thought it was so funny.
Very funny.
But it's objectively not if you're not there.
Yeah, and I don't know whether this is like a good thing or a bad thing, but what it reminds me of is early bands that I was in, when we would get so bored with practicing the same songs over and over again, we would switch instruments, right? So like I was primarily a drummer. I would get on the guitar and just make some nonsensical noise that was just the most offensive thing that your ears have ever heard. And then, you know, the bassist gets on the drums and the guitarist gets on the bass, and they just make noise together, and they think it's the best thing that anybody's ever heard.
It's so funny. But if you're not there, it's like, okay, cool.
Such a waste of time.
It does not need to be on this record. I mean, this to me...
But, well, I was going to say, but it does... again line up with their ethos as a band.
It does. But to me,
for better or for worse,
to me, Kitty Doggy is more egregious than the Jesus Freak reprise.
Really?
It is.
Wow.
I know.
Them fighting words.
I know. It has no place on this record.
I think I hate them the same.
Yeah. It's similar, and like Mrs. Morgan and stuff. Like, it's just like,
right.
Like, what's the point, man? What?
I think that you and I are a little different in the sense that I am in general okay with these off to the side random noise sketches.
Yeah.
Whatever they are, I just like, I let them wash over me, and I don't really have much of an opinion.
Yeah.
But I accept it as a part of the album. Doesn't mean I love it, but I like am just okay.
See, I don't. Yeah, I guess you're right. Because you know, I feel like this tradition came out specifically in a lot of early 90s hip hop records, and I skip them every time. Because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's because like I've done this exact same thing. That Kitty Doggy did.
Oh yeah.
I've done
we all
this
have.
stupid with all my friends. But also, I think for me, coming from, you know, performing and writing songs and writing albums and even doing stand up for a short period of time, I don't love wasted space in a record.
Right. You want to create quality content that doesn't waste time or waste the listener's energy or attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like this
makes sense.
I feel like this does a little bit. Like I don't fault them
I agree.
for
it's a
doing
total waste
it
of time.
because, like I said, I have done it. I have 100% done it. I've written some stupid songs with all my friends. But I don't understand why it needs to go on an album. I don't get it. Because I think of it too in terms of like, you watch certain movies, even if they're like really fun movies, and there are those like certain scenes that, you know, everyone is just like goofing around, having a good time. And it was probably super fun to make, but from the viewer or from the listener, it just doesn't translate. And it feels mean to me. It feels like I'm missing out on an inside joke. And maybe that's because maybe that's okay.
I think we've just tapped into something
here. This is part of me being on the spectrum. I think
let it happen, man.
I feel mad that I'm not part of the joke. I feel like I don't get the joke. I don't get it.
You're upset that you weren't in the room when it was happening to be a part of it.
Man, we're
that makes so much sense.
Yeah, we're going deep on
making breakthroughs, baby.
All right. Well, you got anything else to say? We talked about this way longer. Like, I literally wrote one line on this, and I was like, all right, we're not going to talk about this at all. And I think we've talked about this longer than we've talked about any song on the record.
Yeah. There was just some baggage there for you, buddy, and I'm glad you're offloading it.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
All right. Well, you want to do the next track?
Blue Comb 78, track 7.
See through my new blue coat, I'm doing someone at 70. That's that I'm sorry, we can't go back, we're never going back to get it.
This one, I feel like this is the song that I shouldn't like, but I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, for me it is, because there's a lot of like critiques that I can throw at the song, but I still end up being glad that it exists. I really appreciate that there's this nostalgic visual that's created from the get-go. I respect the picture that he's painting lyrically with that.
You know what? I think this might be my favorite song on the record. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Have we listened to your favorite song yet? Or are we going to get there? Okay, not yet.
We'll get there.
I don't know. I love the story he was telling.
That's awesome.
It felt really personal. You know, I mean, it obviously was very personal, but I loved, if you think about it lyrically, if you think about it story-wise, taking a really seemingly insignificant thing like this blue comb, but then shining a light on how that one tiny thing affected a lot of his outlook on life in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like bringing it in on an emotional level to something that seems innocuous that turns into a much bigger thing. I love that.
Actually had a really significant impact on him.
I think that's great. And I think I love too, like, it seems like he's kind of mad about it, but also kind of not. Like, there's a nostalgia element to that too. You know, he says out the window, that was the last great symbol of my youth.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like a really big moment. And I get that. Like, everyone sort of has those moments that seem insignificant to everyone else, but to you is like a really big moment. And I love that he brought that element in to the lyrics.
With something as simple as losing a comb.
But I love too, because he even brought up, like, my favorite line of this is, I still remember where the highway turns at the bottom of the hill. My parents both up front because they loved each other still.
Yeah.
Like, just the youthful nostalgia of that. I don't know. I just...
Yeah. No, you're right. I think I didn't give it enough credit lyrically when we listened back. Because like you said, we recorded the first half of this, then listened, then came right back. I think if I had a second listen of it, I would have dug into the lyrical depth there a little more. But now that you kind of go over it, I think I'm reframing the song.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the fact that it takes something so small and blows it up in a much bigger context. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Musically, it's okay. It's kind of the same as,
I think the one thing I can,
a lot of the other ones. The one thing you can what?
The one thing I can say about it as a crucial part of this album is that it seems to be the most straight punk upbeat song, like that up tempo,
right?
Which I feel like ska, because there's sort of a ska punk band, they need a song or two that has that edgy upbeat feel that you can skank to.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So, and then that horn part that's like dun, 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 ascending line was really nice too. It comes in at the right time to lift the song. But yeah, that's all I got.
So yeah, this one was definitely my favorite.
A winner for Kai Dog.
All right, well, let's move on to track number 8, Banner Year.
Banner Year.
Can you tell by how I said that title how I feel about this song?
Well, let's hear it. How do you feel about this song, Kylan?
I just don't get it.
Tell me more.
Get it, man.
What don't you get?
Well, I don't know. Why did they go into a history lesson? So far, everything else on this record is super personal, and this is like a weird history lesson. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Can you help me out here? Can you talk about?
The only thing that I can think of is that I know Reese and maybe some of the other band members, they've been known to be overtly critical of blind nationalism, and I can imagine that this song was an opportunity for them to tell a story that could quickly convey the evil of, these ideas like manifest destiny and just being nationalistic for nationalism's sake, and feel however you feel about it. I'm just saying that's my understanding of their position. Again, just my understanding, not speaking for them. But I could see how this song could be an opportunity to point out the evils of violence and one people taking over an area of another people, and kind of the suffering that might exist in that story.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I get all that, but okay. This helps me out a little bit. Looking online, I read something specifically about this song. The content of our newest album ever continues several topical threads that the band had begun to explore on their debut album. Banner Year takes on the thread of historical mistreatment of Native Americans, and I do love that. And I think
for context for those, it's the massacre at Sand Creek is what's mentioned in the song,
and I think it's great. But I don't know. I don't know. In terms of the album, for me, it just seems like such an outlier. Like, I wish they had either taken it out or done more things like that. Like, it feels weird to me to talk about, here's our Polish dogs and sleeping on the floor and 7th grade sucks. All of a sudden, the U.S. is treating Native Americans terribly. Yeah, like, no like, I get that. I get it, but it's just such, it's such a curveball to me.
Right.
In terms of this album in particular. But if they'd had a couple other songs, then I think that would make more sense. I don't know. Is that of me?
No, I see what you're saying, especially as far as it sticking out tonally with the rest of the album. I agree. It does seem to be an outlier in that way. And I'll say this, I think musically it fits super well, but lyrically it doesn't. And the juxtaposition between the kind of the weight of those lyrics and the happy, skippy, up-tempo music, that was something I mentioned feeling a little weird about. The happy horn part after the bridge or around the bridge felt weird after kind of some darker lyrics. And so I agree. I think it's a valid point you make. I guess, like, for me, just knowing Reese's stance on certain things, it never was like a surprise to me. And as a kid listening to the song, I didn't really get it.
Right.
I didn't think about it. I was like, oh, there was a massacre and some people died. That's sad. Yeah. His banner over me is love, and love is good. That was kind of the extent of my comprehension for the song. So I didn't really dig into it. But you're right. Looking back on it, it does seem kind of like a strange tonal shift for the album.
I thought so. But it would be interesting if this was a turning point in the record to lead into more songs that are kind of like this. I think that would work, taking it from the personal tone into,
a wider context.
Exactly. But it doesn't do that.
With a little more
seems
weight.
Like a weird outlier. I will say, though, musically, that drummer is working. On this song,
he's on fire,
in
man.
particular, man, he is working.
Yeah. I really like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, apologies, but Verdicchio, like, I like his drumming style. I think that he, that's something that I meant to mention about the album as a whole, is just like, I think he mixes things up so well across the album to keep the basic ska sound interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
and especially here in this song. So I'm glad you brought that up because that is
this was the first one that
positive.
I like really noticed in particular in terms of all the songs thus far. He's working his butt off, man.
He's working.
Yeah, I just as you know, I was a drummer for a while too, and I know you're a drummer. Like I could just feel the sweat coming off him on this song. Like he's just drumming, he's going so fast and so hard.
Dude, I can't imagine being a ska drummer live playing shows. Like I would just be so exhausted.
I did notice on this song too, they don't love choruses. They don't love sing-along choruses.
No.
It all just kind of, it feels a lot more, the whole song is sort of like the lyrics don't necessarily match the music in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of like, it sounded like he wrote the lyrics separately.
Right.
And then just kind of tried to find ways to fit them into the music.
Right.
Which kind of detracts from the album as a whole for me. But it works for some songs. But this is the first song too on the record. I mean, we're a little over halfway, and I started suffering from what I'm calling ska fatigue.
Ska fatigue. It's very real. Ask your doctor.
You know, it was all so good until it kind of wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I started to get real tired, real tired.
Yep.
All right, you ready to move on to track number 9?
Let's do it.
All right, track number 9.
Second season. Yeah, this one's another change of pace a little bit.
Yeah, this is the first song that I thought that the lyrics and melody actually fit the music.
Really?
Yeah. This one fit more than any other, I think.
That's interesting because I don't know this for sure, but from some digging on the interweb, I found one sort of discography website that cites Dennis Culp as the writer.
Okay.
He's the trombonist, and he also is credited as a vocalist on this album. And so I think that's also him singing.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure.
It seems a little different.
But it's obviously not Reese.
It seems a little different than the rest of the record. I like it.
Yeah. It's very fun.
This one, like I said, felt a lot less spoken word than the rest of the record did.
Yeah, it's a more straightforwardly sung song.
This is another one, though, I wrote that every song is too long. The song is too long.
Yeah, this one definitely stretches out way longer than it needs to. I agree.
But I get, like you said, too, like, in terms of, like, seeing them live, it's probably great. It's probably so good.
Yeah, right.
But on a record, especially on song 9, I'm falling apart from that ska fatigue, man.
I agree. I think that his vocal style is nice because it's so different from Reese's, because he sings and because he has a very polished kind of sheen to his vocals. I believe that helps push back on the fatigue that you mentioned, but it doesn't totally get rid of it for me. I also wonder if maybe because he wrote this in a very intentional, structured way, because compositionally this song feels a little more thoughtful.
Yep.
I almost wonder if he just wrote these lyrics and he was like, we need all of these lyrics, so we need enough music for all of these lyrics.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And that's why it's so long, you know?
Interesting. Yeah.
Because it seems like there's some real like he was thinking ahead. And there was like an intentional plan, and he wasn't willing to cut any fat because that was his vision for the song. I'm just throwing that out there, but that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. Hold on. I want to look up some of these lyrics.
It's got a nice sunny bop kind of feel. Like you're just kind of like, I could go on a walk to this song.
Yeah. Like it feels like the opening scenes of like a sitcom, like a single cam sitcom.
Yeah. Yes.
And like someone puts in their headphones and is walking down the street.
Right. Before the rain clouds show up and they get drenched.
Besides that, I don't have much else to say about this one. It's good.
I like the idea of a second season coming around and the hope that brings.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
It's a fun message.
All right. Well, let's rock and roll right on to track number 10, Litmus.
Yeah. Nice drums there.
It's good. Yeah, I love the intro to this. It feels the most ska-like that they've had in a little bit.
I'm curious to hear your idea for an alternate album track list order, because I think that this song features well where it's at.
Well, I have this in a similar place. Yeah, it's a good
because it does need to be on the back half to bring that energy back up.
Exactly. I love the lyrics of this song. I think the chorus is really weak though.
Yeah.
I think the chorus, like the melody on the chorus, is super weak. Especially because I think the lyrics are so good. Like it kind of bums me out a little bit.
Right.
You know, even though there's a lot in the lyrics, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it exactly, but I think he's bringing up a very specific point, you know, applying that within talking about like sciencey stuff. I thought it was really interesting. I keep coming back to this, and I get that like ska is not the type of music where you're supposed to like sing along to everything. You're mostly just supposed to skank,
right? Bob your head.
I can't sing along to so much of this album, you know. Like there's not a lot that I can hook into to sing along.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I actually like the chorus for its simplicity. It's not super catchy. It's nothing that's gonna blow your mind. But I like the acid or bass idea. Like that's kind of a fun visual.
Yeah. Well, this is another one though where I could like see the music video in my head.
Right.
He does paint a really good picture lyrically. There is sweet bass in the song. The song totally has some sweet bass, and I like his vocal delivery on this more than some of the other ones. He's a little scratchier.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a little angst and a little confidence too that works really well.
And I like that the verses into the chorus, the verses feel a little more not halftime, but the way he's kind of delivering it, the lines are a little longer, and then he does kind of speed it up on the chorus. I do enjoy that.
Yeah, there's a good dynamic shift between the parts of the song.
But I don't know if I love it because it's really good or because of how much I've not heard that on the record so much. I'm kind of latching on to it, you know?
Yeah. Favorite lyric of the song: with pocketfuls of quips and gurgles, words that fluff like a handful of gerbils.
Pocketfuls of quips and gurgles, words that fluff like a handful of gerbils.
Yes, that's mine too. It's so good.
Just, I don't understand it, and I don't need to. I love it.
Yeah.
I do like that kind of outro instrumental that starts with that slinky bass line. That's like that kind of Dick Dale.
That's what I'm saying, sweet bass, man.
Surfy sound.
Their bass player on this, man. It's so good. I like songs too that have almost a sort of lead bass element. You know what I mean? Like the bass isn't just holding down the rhythm. It's also very melodic.
Right. It's featured prominently. And I also want to mention, in my mind, Litmus is the song that connects most to the album art, but I'm probably just projecting that. But to me, the guy in the straitjacket or lab coat or whatever he's in seems like the guy that's, you know, doing the litmus test.
Okay. I like that.
That was always how I envisioned it. And so I think this song sticks out to me for that reason, because I kind of put the aesthetic of the album art together with this song.
Okay. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to track number 11. Oh, Canada.
Welcome to Canada. It's a maple leaf state. Oh, Canada. It's great. The people are nice and they speak French too.
So this is probably the second 5 Iron Frenzy song I ever heard.
This to me is like the quintessential 5 Iron Frenzy song.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, it's goofy. It's fun.
It really is.
Is it? Okay. Definitely not to the extent that Colored People is, but is this song racist? Not that it's like overtly racist, but is it? Okay, I only bring this up because when I was in high school, The very first song that I wrote that I performed at the talent show was called the Eskimo song. And yeah,
Oh, wow.
and all of it, I was just saying, I was just being a dumb kid, and I was saying like, we're all Eskimos, and it was just funny, and I didn't think too much about it.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, talking about yaks and things like that in this song, like I don't know, especially because they're not a Canadian band. I don't know. I don't know if that's like
Right.
if I'm projecting too much 2020 wokeness on it, because
It's a valid question.
fun song. It is a really fun song, but
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's a playful nod to the culture of Canada. And it's Reese being a cheeseball. But I see what you're saying, and I don't have an answer.
that's valid. That's
I
totally
don't
valid.
know.
That's totally valid.
But I will say, just looking over these lyrics, it doesn't seem like there's anything that's overtly racist or...
Yeah, I know. Racist is the wrong word, I think, because it's not.
It's definitely an oversimplification of an entire country.
Maybe that's what I'm. Maybe that's what I'm picking up on. I don't know.
Which feels a little weird. It's like, wait, so that's all? Five Iron Frenzy just summed up the whole of Canada
But also, who
in
cares?
this one song.
You know what I mean? Like who
Exactly.
cares?
They're a ska band from Denver.
It's just fun. It's just a fun song.
It is fun.
It's
I'll say this for them. There's no song that I know of that in one line name drops William Shatner and also mentions a Slurpee made from venison.
yeah. That's true.
There's no other song.
That's true.
And there's probably no other band that could get away with it.
Unless they were a Canadian band.
Yep. I do have a question. So if ever Reese Roper or any members of Five Iron, past or present or future, or any marketing folks, friends, family, anyone is connected to them in any way, I have a question.
Okay. Shoot.
Reese, why the lyric "I see vous play" makes no sense, and you know that. You're better than that. All right, that's all.
Well, I don't know. It makes sense to me, but I also didn't live in France for 2 years.
Yeah, I lived in France for 2 years. I actually love it, and I also am consternated by it now that I know French. But before, it made no sense, and it was great for that reason.
Yeah.
Super fun song though.
It is. It's a bop, man. That song's a bop.
Like I'll be on my deathbed, and if somebody brought that song to me, I would sing it
On your
loud and
deathbed. All right,
clear.
I'm gonna do that.
Do it, man. Also, I love that they take the moment to do the nod to the Canadian national anthem. The horns play one section of it, and then they get really like slinky
Right.
groovy with it, which is super
Well,
fun.
Also, because this is such a fun song, and because it's so popular, it's weird to me that it's so far into the album.
Yeah, it is way back.
It's real
It's
weird. to
true.
me.
I've never thought of that,
Yeah.
but you're right. It's kind of strange.
Well, I got nothing else on that.
Me neither.
All right, let's do track number 12, Most Likely to Succeed.
Track 12.
All right, once again, my ska fatigue is hitting me hard. All I wrote on this is it has a great chorus.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I wrote it feels like a filler, and I agree with your ska fatigue point. It also makes me think of something that we've mentioned in the past, and that's the first fire syndrome.
Oh yeah.
So a little variation on that theme here. All of these horn intros, I get that that's the structure for ska, and that's the way of the world. But more than ever on this song, when it starts in, I'm like, I've heard this song before.
Yeah.
And it's because of that horn intro that sounds just like 17,000 other
Like every other
ska
ska
songs,
song
I guess.
that's ever been written.
Yeah. And I guess I wish that they could figure out how to start a song a little differently.
Yeah, I feel like
And in their defense, there's plenty of other songs on this album that start differently, but there are like probably 4 or 5 that start almost the same way.
I know.
So-
I don't know. So I guess this is like a good time to bring up one of the reviews that I read of this album was that it just kind of was status quo. It didn't add anything new. It felt like every other ska album that was coming out at the time.
I wonder, though, if that's because by 1997, the ska-naissance had reached its peak and it was like overblown, like oversaturated. And there were just too many ska bands that had happened to rise up. I don't know, but I don't disagree with that necessarily.
Yeah. Oh, I will bring up too. Where can I find it? Oh yeah. So I will bring up too. One of the reviews that I read about this too, I thought was interesting, is a reviewer compared this record and lyrically compared it to Steve Taylor of Newsboys fame, of
our homie
Breakfast,
Steve.
You know, the MVP of Take This to Your Leader, who wrote some weird but also weirdly profound lyrics. And I do think they did, for the most part, they did a good job of finding the line between personal and goofy and serious. You know what I mean? Of bringing the big things and also just being a goofy ska band.
Yeah, I agree. I can definitely see the parallel between Reese's kind of silly but also pretty solid lyricism, comparing that to Steve Taylor. Also, one thing I wanted to mention about this song is that I can't tell if I like the message or not. I think I do, because to me, it seems like a critique of the sort of American capitalist system overvaluing productivity and not caring about people as people. I think that's what it's saying, but there's also the line about the poster child for becoming homeless, which then feels almost autobiographical, because that seems like something that Reese would say about himself, like just in a sort of jest. And so I'm a little confused. And so I wonder, Kylan, if you have a better or different read on the song's message. Like, you know, basically the chorus says, do what you do when you say what you want to say, with or without regard for me. Scheme what you scheme. When you're thinking of yourself, you're the most likely to succeed. The yearbook said that you'd be another winner. You forgot what success should mean. The poster child for becoming homeless, Mr. Most Likely to Succeed. To me, it kind of does cartwheels with its messaging, but maybe I'm just confused by it. What do you think?
I agree with that. It seems, it's another thing that seems very kind of immature, a little bit, very middle school. It's a very easy thing to understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if the song really benefits from that. You know, I think
again, it's like, I think I like the message, but ultimately I end up feeling confused about it. So I don't know what to think.
Exactly.
A fine tune, I guess.
Yeah, it's all right.
Anything else to say about it?
No, I don't. I think we should move on. We are almost done. This is the last track. I feel like we've been blasting through this, but I don't know how long we've been recording. How long have we been going now?
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
I don't know.
Okay, we're at 115 minutes. We're at almost
Not
2
bad.
hours. Once I cut it down, you know, maybe a little bit without all my pee breaks. It'll probably be about, you know, a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is the last track, Every New Day. Oh, besides the secret bonus track.
Dear Father, I need you. Your strength, my heart to mend. I want to fly higher every new day again.
So we finally arrived, Kylan, at my favorite song.
This is your favorite. This is it.
Man.
Okay. Why is it your favorite?
To me, for one thing, the horn section it's unique. The horn section piques my ear a little bit, and even after having heard the song a million times, I still like it. And then I guess the very next thing that I think about with this song are the lyrics. And as I mentioned in the first half, I just love sort of the message of hope and resilience and holding on to dreams and aspirations, overcoming tough situations against all odds. To me, that is the core of this song, and it just makes me smile.
No, I think it's a good bookend too for the album. I think it kind of reaffirms that mission statement. It is, I will say, the most worshipy lyric wise. You know, and it does feel a little weird to me, the same way that Banner Year did. was like, I kind of wish maybe they had a little more like this or not have it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
it dives right into the sincere head first.
Yes. But I really do enjoy it. I think it's a really solid album closer.
Yeah, I agree. To me, the repeated phrase of when I was young, and then following that up with different descriptions of, you know, what life is like for us all as we're growing up and learning new things. To me, that's like a simple but powerful lyrical idea. I feel like he used it really well. The first lines right out of the gate are, when I was young, the smallest trickle of light could catch my eye. Then life was new, and every new day I thought that I could fly.
That's so good.
And don't we all feel that way?
Good.
You know?
That's such a good line.
Yeah. And then he takes it further with a little bit of juxtaposition, repeating it. When I was small, the furthest I could reach was not so high. Then I thought the world was so much smaller, feeling I could fly. So acknowledging that, like, we're all kind of tiny and vulnerable and not super capable, but we feel like we are, and we feel like we can do so much. And then acknowledging kind of the reality of life the more you grow up and see things for what they are. But then he falls back on, you know, taking strength from another source and flying higher, and every new day being new again. I don't know. I just love it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really solid. I think this one lyrically found the balance of the micro and the macro a lot better than a lot of other songs did, you know?
Mm-hmm. And there's even a touch of that silliness of that bridge, the man versus himself, man versus machine, man versus the world, mankind versus me.
It's like all the story archetypes. They all just like fit together really well.
And it's like over the top, but it also is very true, you know? Like, I mean, there's like truth in it, even though there's kind of some cheeseball in it too. And then that outro, like with the double time drums and the horns, like just rising. I don't know. It feels like the heavens are parting, man.
Like I said, it is a great album
to take
closer.
off.
It is one of the more solid songs on the record, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm just glad that I can listen to it as a 30-something in 2020 and still feel that freshness and that newness and sense of hope and light, and like I can smile all the way through that song without any sort of
right. Yeah, and there's no shame about it. It's just like it's a hopeful song.
Yeah.
And it's not trying to be anything else or trying to trick you into feeling hopeful. It just is. It's super sincere.
Right. And I'm super grateful for it. It lets me finish the album with a cleansed palette, I guess, like sonically, and with like an extra pep in my step. I don't know.
That's rad. So do you want to talk about the secret track?
So I didn't think it was on Spotify because I didn't wait.
No, it is.
And I went to find it on the internet. So actually this will be the first time I've heard it as we record here.
It comes in right around like 8:15.
What do you want to say about the secret track?
It's dumb. But it's like the perfect secret track. You know what I mean? Like you could also put Kitty Doggy as the secret track, and I would be more happy with it being there than anywhere else. It's just them messing around.
Right.
I didn't look up lyrics or anything. I don't know what they're saying because all the vocals are way blown out.
I've got no idea. And I don't really care to.
Exactly.
I'm hearing it now, and I'm glad it exists because I think I'm having my own revelation now as I'm listening to it about this whole nonsense sketch thing. I think the fact that they decided to share it with us, the listeners, makes me feel invited to the joke. And so because of that, I love that I get to kind of look behind the curtain and see them at their silliest and see them doing bonkers stuff that makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah, I think ultimately how I feel is all that stuff should be at the end of an album. It should be a secret track. It should be like an optional part of the listening experience. And that goes back to what you were saying about a listener feeling like their time's being wasted. This way, it wouldn't feel that way because you could just turn it off if you wanted
but
to.
I love that it is a secret track. You know, I do miss the days of bands doing secret tracks because I think that is the place where you can add all that nonsense of just some that you made up at 4 a.m. with all your best friends.
It's super fun.
Yeah. All right. So we did it. We listened to our newest album ever. Oh, hey, before we talk about whether it's a flop or a bop, do you want to hear my alternative track list?
Hey, so Kylan, I was wondering, what about that alternative track list? Why don't you fill me in? What do you got?
So I think if I had sat down and thought about this a little more, it might be a little different, but this is, like I said, listening through this record, it was all kind of first impressions. But I do want to get your opinion on if you think this track list would work and how it would work compared to the actual track list.
Let's hear it.
So right off the bat, get rid of Kitty Doggy. We don't need it.
Just scrap it.
Yeah, we don't need it. We also don't need Most Likely to Succeed.
Okay.
This can be a 10-song album, right? That's all you need.
Yep.
I think starting with Superpowers, I think that's a better album opener. It's really strong. It's really catchy. You know, it hooks you right in. Still kind of gives you a little bit of that mission statement of who they are as a band. Then from there, go right into Oh Canada. So you kind of front load it. Front load it a little bit.
Right.
Then have Handbook for the Sellout, track number 3. From that, go into Second Season. Then so it's starting to get, you know, it was real goofy, kind of fun, and also personal about being in a band. And then it starts to transition a little bit. Second Season kind of does that into Blue Comb 78, which gets really personal. And then, so you go from the micro to the macro with, right after that, you have Banner Year.
Okay.
Then you have Sucker Punch right after that, because it was like this really heavy kind of thing. And then it just kind of gets fun and goofy again. And from there, right after that, do Where's Micah?
Right.
That's a good, like, later in the album, keeping it fun, keeping it light.
Yep.
And then you do Litmus and end on Every New Day. So you get a little bit angry, you know, you get a little bit more intense, and then you end it back on that positive note.
And what did you say about Blue Comb? What came before and after Blue Comb?
Blue Comb, before that was Second Season, and Banner Year is right after it. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to make a playlist of that alternative track list and post it on social media too. And maybe we'll do like a playlist of the album as is, and then my alternate track list, and see if I'm crazy, see if anyone agrees that. But I think personally, for me, a better listening experience would be that track list.
Yeah, that would have more of an impact.
I think it would flow a lot better.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think the only complaint I have about that is that Blue Comb and Second Season are like similar in that they're like kind of mid-tempo. Right. And if they're back to back, that might actually create more of a slump. But maybe not. I don't know. And other than that, I love it.
Okay, cool.
I think it's perfect.
I think it's better than this track list.
Good job.
I mean, who am I to say? That's just my personal opinion on it. And I thought that was an interesting experiment to try to do an alternate track list, because I thought that halfway through the record. I thought that a lot of the songs were solid, but I think the way that the track list kind of felt like it just didn't flow well as an album as a whole. So I think that might give it a little bit more flow.
Yeah, I love it. Solid.
All right, so that brings us to, as well, the ever important question.
The big question, the moment you've all been waiting for, is our newest album ever a flop or a bop? Well, should you go first?
I don't know if I want to.
Should I go first? You don't want to?
I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Talk me through your thought process. What's happening in your mind?
I think, and not to toot my own horn, but I think going back to my alternate track list, I think my alternate track list is a bop.
Oh.
I think the album as it stands might be a flop, but I think that might just be my ska fatigue coming out. It might make me a little cranky.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the songs totally stand on their own. They're great songs. I think the sequencing of the album, I think the way that it fits together doesn't work for me. It feels a lot more like a first album than a second album for a band. So right. Like if you think of it in
Right.
this context of like whenever you're first starting out and you go in to record your first album, I don't think there's as much thought behind the album as a whole because however much time you spent as a band, you've kind of written all these songs that are all kind of random and kind of all over the place, but you just want to get all of your music out there.
It's not as much about the through line or the common thread or the flow as much as it is getting the content out there to the listener.
Exactly. It's just getting everything you have out, and then I feel like you have a little bit more time. And the sophomore slump is like a real thing. I feel like the second album also gives you more an opportunity, especially if you have a bigger recording budget, things like that, to really hone in on which songs need to be out there, like which songs need to represent who you are. And I think the second album for a lot of bands is often more important than the first album, because now you've got your fan base, and you really want to hone in on who you are and what you're trying to say. And while a lot of these songs are really good and they do say who the band is, like they have the goofy element of Oh Canada, and they have the personal element of Blue Comb 78, and they have the sort of mix in between of Superpowers and Where Is Micah and stuff like that. It didn't feel to me like a whole lot of thought was put into how do these songs work together. You know what I mean?
Together, yep.
You know what I mean? So I don't know where that leaves me. I don't know if I have an answer because I said both.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a stickler for these types of things, so I think that's a fine answer.
Cool. But I also think too, I'm trying to think of in terms of other ska music that was out at the time. I don't know if it's any better or any worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's fine.
Yeah. That's a good point, because it is important to judge an album in the correct context. And since we aren't quite the ultimate ska aficionados that we should be, we can't really say on that basis, but we can say for our own personal taste how we feel. And I think that you've done that. I like your alternate track list. I like that you're giving the album a chance because you see it has potential.
Yeah, totally. But because I don't think too, I don't know if I would put this, and maybe it's just because ska is such a specific genre. I don't know if I would put it, because we talked about too on the Newsboys episode, how the big thing that we're trying to do is to try to give these Christian bands the same kind of critical analysis that we do a lot of other bands of the same time.
Right.
And I don't know if I would put this above or below any other ska music. I think honestly,
to me it just fits right in.
I would just make a playlist of random ska songs, but I would totally put Sucker Punch and Oh Canada and honestly probably Blue Comb 78 and Every New Day on that playlist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and now answer, because that really leads into my thoughts on it and the way I think I've decided to judge whether an album is a flop or a bop is, does a majority of it work really well for me?
Okay.
If more than half of it lands in the positive arena of my creative sphere of critique, then it's a bop for me. Because I think that the efforts put in have paid off, and more than half of it is great.
Okay.
So it's a bop. So in my mind, this is definitely a bop in that way. And I'll add with the caveat that your playlist, your track list version of it might take it from being a 60% bop to a 90% bop.
All right. Yeah. So I'm curious to get that alternative track list out there and see what listeners think of it.
Yeah. And for any listeners, maybe you've got even another idea of how the track list could look.
So yeah, you should totally reach out to us at churchjamsnowpod@gmail.com. Wait, no, you should reach out to us at churchjamsnowpodcast@gmail.com and tell us what you think. Was I too hard on it? Was TJ not hard enough? Is this? Give us some more context with ska too. I don't know if we have any people that were part of the ska-naissance.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we got a lot of Ska spurts.
I saw that worked in your head. That totally worked in your head until it came out your mouth.
I went for it. Yeah.
But yeah. So okay,
no shame.
So we're at an interesting point. So the first album we reviewed, we thought it was going to be a bop. It was a flop. Second album, thought it was going to be a bop. It was a bop. Third album, we're a little bit on the mostly bop. I mean, I agree with that. That's the only reason I made the alternative track list too. You know,
right?
It has potential to be a bop. So I'm a little bit more on the fence that, you know, that's an interesting outcome that I didn't anticipate going into this, you know?
I like it. I love that you're giving it a chance.
Yeah. That's what this whole podcast is, man.
You're finding a way to make it work.
Because I want it to. It is really good. And those horns, I mean, and we talked about being a ska drummer. I mean, all of it. I just I do love it. I want to love it. I want to love it more than I do, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, hey, not to shift the focus, but go listen to Engine of a Million Plots.
Oh, is that their newest one?
That's the new one. Go listen to that. I think you'll be scopped up. No.
Skibbity bop.
You'll be ecstatic.
Ooh, okay. Wait,
no.
that was pretty good. Ecstatic. Hold on. There's something there.
Okay, well, give that album a listen, Kylan, because I think you'll find it skawesome.
Ooh, there we go. That's it. You nailed it.
That's the take.
It will be indeed skawesome. So I don't think we have much else, right? I think it's really funny because I know going into this album, we decided to do it all in one day too, because we're like, oh yeah, this will be really quick. This will be so fast compared to the other ones. Well, and then. Yep. I don't think it has been. I think we got deeper than we anticipated.
Yeah, we somehow always find a way to overanalyze things and just go real deep.
But hey, that's literally the point of this, right? That's like the whole idea.
Church jams now and forever.
So next week, TJ, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure? Okay, well, we're switching it up just a little bit, you know, because we did DC Talk, Newsboys, and then we kind of we took a hard right turn with 5 Iron Frenzy to go from less worshipy kind of stuff into ska punk territory. And we're switching it again to go into some more pop music, also with an album that we're not very familiar with. But the album is the self-titled 1997 album, Sixpence None the Richer. I'm very excited because literally all I know about this band, I know that they were a Christian band, but they wrote Kiss Me.
And I like that we're jumping to a band that released in the same year as 5 Iron.
Oh,
That'll be fun.
And then this album was all over the charts. This was one of the few albums that also transcended the Christian music context to go into the zeitgeist in a much bigger way. So I'm curious to see if there are religious elements in this album, or if they were just if they started as a Christian band and then, you know, kind of gave that away, or what, you know, we got to do our research and figure that out. But I don't know. I'm pretty stoked about doing that record.
It'll be interesting, man. I can't wait to jump in.
Also, listeners,
stoked.
If you have any suggestions for albums that we should do, please feel free to reach out to us on our email or on Twitter or on Facebook or Instagram or Friendster, you know, on Foursquare. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts. Definitely when you write reviews, that helps us get more listeners. So if you enjoy way overanalyzing music, such as Sucker Punch, which I'm not sure was meant to be overanalyzed, then please do that and help us out. Thank you so much.
I just want to tell everybody thanks for scopping by.
Oh, damn, you've been thinking about that. That's why you've been quiet.
This has been another skawesome episode of Church Jams Now.